Good evening. Welcome in the land of Pitt County, residents out there in media. And those of you who are here, thank you for coming tonight. I'd like to welcome all of you, and let's take our attention to call the roll. Lord, I haven't cried so much. Okay. Okay, I'm waiting for the. Okay, thank you. Call the roll. Mine is working. There it is. Thank you. All of us are here, Madam Clerk. Invocation by Commissioner White. Are you doing it?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Dear Lord, we come to you tonight. There's a lot going on in the world. We pray for peace, and we pray that you be with us and guide us tonight to make the right decisions and do what is best for the people of Pitt County. Amen.
Amen.
Great. I'd like to introduce our student pledge leader for this evening. Please introduce yourself.
Good evening. My name is Maya Smallwood. I'm the student body vice president at Innovation Early College. And would you please join me by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated.
May be seated. At this point in our meeting, I've had my ethics training, and ethics says there's something that I should do as chair. At this point in the meeting, before the approval of the agenda, I would like to know if any of the commissioners had the opportunity to look at their packet for the agenda and read it. If you do, please register yes if you've seen it and read it. And if you have not, you can say no, and that'll be good. Madam Clerk, would you record us, please? Thank you. We all have read our agendas. Thank you. At the next point, I'd like to know, after reading it, did you find any conflict of interest in the packet that you need to make us aware of? If you did, say yes. If you did not, please answer with a no. And 2 is no. I have 1 yes.
It's because I pressed the wrong button.
Okay, then. All right. So, Madam Clerk, we all responded no. I would like to have a motion to approve the agenda,
So moved,
please.
Madam Chair.
Motion by Commissioner McLaughlin, second by,
Mr. Holland.
who? Oh, Commissioner Holloman. Let's vote, please. The agenda is approved. Madam
You have no one.
Manager?
You have no one signed up to speak for public addresses to the board.
All right, at some point, we may have a special guest come in. May I present the guest? Because he will be leaving early.
Certainly.
Is there anyone object to on this board? Thank you very much, appreciate that.
Next, we'll go down front for 3 presentations. While we're going down front, if the board wants to approve the resolution supporting Operation Greenlight. The
Oh,
others are
please
already
do.
approved.
I move that we approve the green
Motion by Commissioner Huggins that we approve the green light.
Second.
Second by Commissioner White.
And if Kimberly Dozier would come forward.
Kimberly. Yes, for you. Huh? Oh, yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. Oh. Yes, I met you
Thank
earlier.
you so much for coming forward. This is one of my favorite times of every month where we get to recognize our Employee of the Month. And this month, we're recognizing Kimberly Dozier with Department of Social Services. She actually had 2 nominations from 2 different people. that were considered by the secret committee of peers who selects Employee of the Month. And she was selected because of her extensive policy knowledge related to social services and for being a great team player. One of her nominators said that Kimberly is extremely knowledgeable of child care policy. She is an asset and a great example of a team leader. She has trained new employees and is able to quote policy and give examples so that it's understandable to others. She also helps team members whenever they are in need, said her nominator. Kimberly has been with Pitt County government since 2019 as a child care social worker 2 in the daycare unit assisting families access to child care services. So with that, we are thrilled to present you with a certificate that reads, Certificate of Recognition, Employee of the Month, October 2023, presented to Kimberly Dozier Social Services in recognition of your dedication and exemplary service to Pitt County government and the citizens that we serve. Along with a pretend and real notice of direct deposit, $100 check to thank you for your service, and the chairwoman will present that to you.
Yes, thank you. Do you have anything you'd like to say? Because this is an honor.
I just want to say it just feels good when your hard work speaks for itself and people can recognize the hard work that you're putting into your work every day. And thank you again.
You're welcome, and thank you.
Thank you.
All right?
You are a model for other
I
employees.
think we have
Thank you so
pictures,
much.
and we're going to get a little closer to you like we're not scared of you. Be seated.
Thank you so much.
Okay, you may be seated.
Next, we have a proclamation for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Do we have folks in the audience who are here in connection with that? Excellent. Please come forward and introduce yourself to the board.
Hi, I'm Catherine Barkley. I'm the attorney at the Center for Family Violence Prevention.
Excellent. Thank you so much for being here to receive this proclamation entitled Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And it reads, whereas 1 in every 3 women and 1 in 4 men will experience domestic violence during their lifetime. And whereas 1 in 15 children are exposed to intimate partner violence each year, and 90% of these children are eyewitnesses to this violence. And whereas when a family member is abused, it can have long-term damaging effects on the victim that also leaves a mark on the family, friends, and the community at large. And whereas the problem of domestic violence is not confined to any group or groups of people, but crosses all economic, racial, gender, educational, religious, and societal barriers and is sustained by societal indifference. And whereas the crime of domestic violence violates an individual's privacy, dignity, security, and humanity due to the systemic use of physical, emotional, sexual, psychological, and economic control and/or abuse. And whereas it is important to recognize the compassion and dedication of the individuals who provide services to victims of domestic violence and work to increase public understanding of this significant problem. And whereas important partnerships have been formed among criminal and juvenile justice agencies, healthcare providers, allied professionals, and victim services to assist victims of domestic violence and their families. And whereas Pitt County has an obligation to work to prevent domestic violence and to address its brutal and destructive effects. And whereas Pitt County continues to make ending domestic violence a priority. Now therefore, the Pitt County Board of Commissioners do hereby proclaim the month of October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month and urge all citizens to work towards the elimination of personal and institutional violence against domestic violence victims. Adopted this the 16th day of October 2023, signed by Mary Perkins Williams, Chairwoman, and attested by Kimberly Hines, Clerk to the Board. If you will present that proclamation.
Thank you so much for your hard
Thank
work.
you.
Maybe one day it'll be better.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. I
Yes.
really
Anything to
appreciate
say?
it. We're having a vigil at the courthouse. It's a public event October 25th at 6:30 for victims of domestic violence through the years in Pitt County.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Picture.
Okay.
Thank you for your hard
Thank
work.
you.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for having
much.
us.
Yes. The last presentation we have this evening, if Channing Ford would come forward, and anyone who brought with you, this is a resolution supporting Operation Greenlight for veterans, and you all have met Channing before. She is the director of our Veteran Services Office. under the Human Resources Division. And this reads, supporting Operation Greenlight for Veterans. It reads, whereas the residents of Pitt County have great respect, admiration, and the utmost gratitude for all the men and women who have selflessly served our country and this community in the armed forces. And whereas the contributions and sacrifices of those who served in the armed forces have been vital in maintaining the freedoms and way of life enjoyed by our citizens. And whereas Pitt County seeks to honor individuals who have made countless sacrifices for freedom by placing themselves in harm's way for the good of all. And whereas veterans continue to serve our community in the American Legion, Veterans of Foreign Wars, religious groups, civil service, and by functioning as county veteran services officers in 29 states to help fellow former service members access more than $52 billion in federal health, disability, and compensation benefits each year. And whereas approximately 200,000 service members transition to civilian communities annually, and whereas an estimated 20% increase of service members will 20% increase in service members will transition to civilian life in the near future. And whereas studies indicate that 44 to 72% of service members experience high levels of stress during transition from military to civilian life. And whereas active military service members transitioning from military service are at high risk for suicide during their first year after military service. And whereas the National Association of Counties encourages all counties, parishes, and boroughs to recognize Operation Greenlight for veterans. And whereas the Pitt County Board appreciates the sacrifices of our United States military personnel and believes this special recognition should be granted. Therefore, be it resolved, with designation as a green light for Veterans County, Pitt County hereby declares from the month of October through Veterans Day, November 11th, 2023, as a time to salute and honor the service and sacrifices of our men and women in uniform transitioning from active service. Therefore, be it further resolved that in observance of Operation Greenlight, Pitt County encourages its citizens in patriotic tradition to recognize the importance of honoring all those who made immeasurable sacrifices to preserve freedom by displaying a green light in your window in your place of business or residence from November 6th through November 12th, 2023. Signed by Mary Perkins Williams, Chairwoman, Board of the Pitt County Commissioners, attested to by Kimberly Hines, Clerk to the Board.
Thank you. And I'm gonna find my green light.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Great.
Thank you
Let's
all.
do the minute. You want to say something?
I do accept this as the Pitt County Veteran Services Manager on behalf of the veterans of Pitt County. I'm sure that they really appreciate the honor.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Madam Chairwoman, you're up to public hearings.
Mr. Chase.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, County Commissioners, and County Manager. This is a public hearing for the 2025 CTP Community Grant for the North Carolina Department of Transportation. The Community Transportation Program provides assistance to coordinate existing transportation programs operating in Pitt County, as well as provides transportation options and services for the communities within this service. These services are currently provided using the transit vans that we at PATS have. This particular grant includes administrative monies and some capital monies. It would include 4 new vehicles, and then the administrative money would be the $249,273, and the cost of the vans are $454,800 with a county match of $82,870.95.
Thank you. I'd like to know, is there anyone in the audience who would like to express themselves about this item on the agenda?
There is no one signed up to speak, and I appreciate, Madam Chairwoman, as a requirement of this grant, you must explicitly ask if there's anyone in the audience wishing to comment on the proposed hearing. But we have no one signed up to speak.
Thank you.
Right. I
Members of the
think you
board.
just need to publicly open the hearing, yes. say we have a
Okay.
public hearing.
Motion to publicly open
Motion to
meeting.
approve, Madam Chair.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner McLaughlin, second by Commissioner White.
I'm confused. What are you motioning for?
To open the meeting for
having the
public
public hearing.
agenda.
Chair Nancy,
There
Chair
being
needs to
none,
vote.
there being none, I declare that the public hearing is closed. Members of the board, your pleasure. Do you approve?
So just for clarity in your record, that was your motion, that was unanimous to open your public hearing. You've explicitly requested if anybody wanted to speak.
And then I close,
No one came forward,
right?
and you've closed.
And I've closed.
I'm with you. Thank you.
Okay.
Correct.
Motion to approve, to authorize the county manager to execute what's necessary to move this forward.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Nunley, asking the county manager to execute what takes for this item on the agenda. It was second by Commissioner White. Please vote. Unanimous, Madam Clerk. Items for report.
Thank you.
Mr. Rose.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Just a quick report for you tonight concerning our efforts in hazard mitigation activities and efforts over the past year. This is now a requirement through our community rating system that we actually give you a formal report every year. This is a good thing. We're excited about some of the efforts we've been through. This board has been very instrumental in making Pitt County a much safer place in terms of facing any hazards that come along. The predominant one here, of course, is flooding. So, as I mentioned, our community rating system is a requirement that we bring forward to you. This particular report each year, just as a reminder, hazard mitigation plans are developed every 5 years. Ours was adopted back in 2020. We'll be starting back over in that hazard mitigation planning process within the next few months. So our community rating system, this is vital to us. It also shows your diligence in making sure this is a safer community. One thing that I'll highlight that you put in place some 20 years ago was our free board. It's a term that actually provides safekeeping for folks that are building houses in flood-prone areas. You provided a 2-foot freeboard, which gives additional protection over the base flood elevation. So that is a good thing. So when anyone comes in for a building permit, if they're building in a 100-year floodplain, that structure has to be at least 2 feet above base flood. As some of our efforts in safeguarding construction and other activities, we're recognized now as a Class 8 community. What that means for our community is a 10% deduction in their flood insurance premiums. So if they're seeking to secure any type of flood insurance, they get that at a 10% reduction because of some of these efforts. So a couple of things I'll highlight as far as our current report, and the whole report was in your package. Certainly, land use planning efforts go a long way in making this a safer community too, and recognizing where those flood-prone areas are. One of the biggest items that we had this current year is the adoption of a new land use plan, so that's highlighted here. Just another one too, we've been very serious following Hurricane Floyd back some 20 years ago, Hurricane Matthew, now Hurricane Florence, in making sure that those homes and other buildings that are within flood-prone areas that are repeatedly flooded, we're trying to buy those out through our hazard mitigation grant program. And we've just concluded our hazard mitigation grant program, buyout program for Hurricane Matthew, and currently have 8 properties in queue for Hurricane Florence. And we hope to have all those secured by spring of next year. And once we secure these, this is one we've just purchased. You can see it's been heavily damaged through the years. That will be demolished. It'll return as open space. It happens that this one's in the town of Grifton, and the county typically would deed that over to the town where it's located. So this is just one in process right now. In the future, as we come back in subsequent years, we've got some other projects going on. Several of you were just out at our North of the River complex for the groundbreaking earlier today for our community center. Just across the street from there, on county property, is Parker's Creek, and we're looking at doing a stormwater mitigation activity there associated with that creek because it does flood quite often. Another item that we're working with is our partnership with NCORE, which is North Carolina's Office of Recovery and Resiliency. We're also working with NC State, and a new activity, you'll see that memorandum of understanding coming through in the next few months. We're looking at some of the most flood-prone areas in the county and seeing how we can better serve the folks that live there and make that a safer place. So that's what we have for you tonight. Welcome any questions about the report. No actions necessary.
Any questions from the board? We're on this side. No questions? Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Rose. Mr. West Gray. West Gray.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you,
How are
Commissioners.
you? Welcome to Pitt County. This
Thank
is a
you.
new face. Introduce
Absolutely.
yourself.
I'm Wes Gray. I'm your new Health Director, and today is my first day, so glad to come to the meeting and meet everybody.
How wonderful.
Get to know everybody. I got to meet the staff this morning, met a lot of people out at the groundbreaking this afternoon. That's very exciting to have right there near the Health Department, and so we're looking forward to it. But a little bit about me. I've been the Health Director for Martin Terrell Washington District Health Department for the last 6 years. I grew up in Plymouth and Washington County, and just real excited to come to Pitt County and work with everybody here. So, but tonight I've been asked to do an update for the COVID numbers, and everybody's seen we've had some COVID cases increase recently, but I have good news, and I got a short presentation for everybody about our numbers. So the state provided really good data and numbers for us for several months, but that all ended in May. We got rid of those daily dashboards, and the state has archived those. So what we do now is kind of what we do for flu, is that syndromic surveillance. We look at things like hospitalizations, we look at positive tests that get reported to us, and we look at wastewater, which is an exciting new tool to predict, virus that's in the community. So I've got a few slides to share with y'all. One of our biggest partners in there is ECU Health, and all their systems share the data with us on a weekly basis, so we can see how many of the inpatient people are in the hospital for COVID. 61 inpatients, 8 people in the ICU, and 3 on ventilator with COVID-related illness. As you can see, this is since COVID began in March of 2020. You can see all the different peaks and valleys. The highest part, January 2022, when Omicron hit, and then we've had 2 peaks since then, and we're in the middle of that third little peak. But as you can see, the peaks are getting lower and the valleys are getting wider. And so that's good news, and what we've had is kind of a leveling off, and it's starting to go back down again in the number of inpatients coming in for COVID visits. Also, when you look at weekly testing, have 500 people were getting tested in September and August and September. That's down to about 250, and the number of those that are positive has gone from about 20% of the people getting tested coming back positive down to about 13.9. So we're seeing that drop as well. So that's very encouraging. And then finally, what I really like to see is wastewater data, because you can use this to predict usually a few weeks earlier, if there's virus particles in the wastewater. And you can see a couple weeks later, you start to see your cases rise in the hospital and people coming in. So what we're seeing now is since September, we hit a peak, and we're seeing the cases, the virus in the wastewater system start to go down. And we're seeing that corresponding drop in hospitalizations and positive tests. So that's all very encouraging. I think we're over this third kind of wave. We'll still see cases, but it's really, we don't think it's going to go any higher. We think it's going to continue to drop. But with that, we've had a lot of demand for tests. So we've been offering free test kits. Supply is limited, but we get a lot from the state and from our partners. We've passed out 400 test kits to the public since September. We currently have 360 test kits purchased with DHHS COVID funds for distribution to the public. They're distributed to a community partner. Any community partner that reaches out, calls, or walks in and wants a test, and we'll order more as needed. Tests are given free of charge, no questions asked, and everyone gets a box containing 2 tests per person per household. And we'll continue to provide tests and supplies based on demand. Another update about the Paxlovid is continued to be the recommended antiviral for ages 12 and older. It should be started ASAP after symptom onset, but within 5 days. It's taken 2 times a day for 5 days. And the new COVID vaccine that's been in the news lately. 3 different companies have been approved to offer monovalent vaccine to cover Omicron. We're still in the Omicron phase, but we're seeing these small microvariants, subvariants of Omicron is what's causing the recent rise in cases. That's Moderna for kids 6 to 11, and then 12 and older. Pfizer, 6 months to 4 months, 5 to 11, and 12 and older. And then a company called Novavax for people 12 and older. That FDA authorized those for Moderna and Pfizer on September 11th. The Advisory Committee on Immunization Practice recommended approval the next day. So that ended the emergency authorization for the previous vaccines. We had to stop giving those. Pitt County Health Department is now paying for private doses of vaccine. The state provides bridge access program. That covers your uninsured patients and your underinsured patients. And then we had vaccine and are ready to take appointments. Just a brief reminder, if you're positive, the same isolation and guidance are the same as they've been for the last several years. That's isolate for 5 days from onset of symptoms. And with day 1 being the first set of your symptoms, and 5 days after a positive test, and within 1 day of being the first full day following the day you were tested. You can return to work or school after 5 days, but we ask people to wear masks for the next 5 days. And then quarantine is not required for exposure if you don't have any symptoms. All right, with that, that's a short update, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you might
Are there
have.
any questions by the board? Thank you so very much. We appreciate your report. And welcome to Pitt County.
Thank you. Excited
This
to
is
be
the
here.
good ship, Lollipop.
Absolutely.
Next is Mr. Russell Hill.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Commissioners, and Manager Gallagher. This evening, I bring to you the September 2023 collection report. The Pitt County fiscal year to date, July 1st, 2023 through September 30th, 2023, combined collection rate for real and personal property was 63.30%. The combined collection rate 1 year ago for real and personal property was 64.90%. Pitt County Tax Administration continues to pursue all outstanding taxes using the necessary remedies available through the North Carolina General Statutes. If there are no questions, it is my recommendation to approve the September 2023
motion.
collection rate.
Motion approved.
Second it.
Motion by Commissioner Nunley, second by Commissioner Ward. Please vote.
Thank you.
Unanimous, Madam Clerk. Mr. Sam Croom.
Good evening,
Report.
Chairwoman
Thank
Williams,
you. Good
Board of Commissioners, and Manager Gallagher. Tonight I bring you the September 2023 finance report for the General Fund, the Solid Waste Fund, and EMS Fund. We're 3 months into the fiscal year, or 25% of the year. For the General Fund, we have collected 37.7% of anticipated revenues and spent 22% of budgeted expenditures. For solid waste, we have collected 50.3% and spent 17.0%. For EMS, we have collected 45% and spent 23%. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. If not,
Any questions
like
to
a
Mr.
recommendation.
Coombs? We need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner McLaughlin, second by Commissioner White. Let's vote, please. Unanimous, Madam Clerk. We now have a esteemed manager. Your report, please.
Yes, I have a few items for your report this evening. First is your next meeting dates. We go back to 2 meetings per month in November on the 6th and 20th at 6 p.m. in this room. Also wanted to announce our service awards. And it is not an underestimation to say over and over again how much we appreciated our employees. They are the hearts and hands of this organization, and we like to celebrate those when they reach milestones. And so in your packet, I'd like to read the names out loud. For those having 5 years of service as of this meeting, Samuel Kroom in Financial Services, Jeremy Robb in Detention, Nicole Rose at the Register of Deeds, Sydney Smith Archie in Detention, and Shawnette Wilson in Social Services. For 10 years, we have Rosa Andrews in Detention, Marvin Black in Management Information Systems, Michelle Boston in Social Services, Dan Bunting in Detention, James Council in Solid Waste, Christopher Curtis in the Sheriff's Office, Kermit Darnell in the Sheriff's Office, Jasmine Guisado in the Sheriff's Office, Jamin Ross in Detention, Iva Smith in Public Health, Elizabeth Steele in Public Health, Robert Turcott in Tax Administration, and Joni Young Torres in Cooperative Extension. For 15 years of service with Pitt County government, we have Michael Clark in the Sheriff's Office, Jessica Heath in Emergency Management, Justin Jones in Detention, Stephen Lassiter in Detention, Mason Paramore in the Sheriff's Office, Matthew Stokes in Detention, Benicia Ward in Public Health, and Patrick Waters in the Sheriff's Office. We have 20-year recipients this year. Susan Britt in Financial Services, Natoya Bullock in Detention, Stephen Collingwood in Emergency Management, David Davis in Elections, Latarsha Jones in Tax Administration, Heather Roughton in Social Services, Angeline Wallace in Social Services, and Sheena Williams in Social Services. And 4 recipients of a 25-year service award. Brenda Braxton in Social Services, Tanya Cannon in Social Services, Tracy Cash in Planning, and Scott Tanner in the Sheriff's Office. And then you have 2 35-year awards this time through. Paula Clark in Solid Waste, and we won't leave the only member of senior leadership team getting an award, 35 years of service to James Rhodes in the Planning Department.
How wonderful.
We can have a round of applause.
Yes.
And those, we've changed the format this year since we are doing all evening meetings. And tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., all of those named recipients will have a reception in this auditorium. Commissioners are welcome to join, and we will present them with their certificates and give them a light breakfast to celebrate them during their regular work hours. Next thing I have, you've heard a little bit about already, and that's Operation Greenlight. This year, the National Association of Counties is calling the theme the Veterans Battlefield, Light Your County Green. And as was previously mentioned, we encourage everyone to light their residence or home green from November 6th to the 12th of this year. We will, as we did last year, light the county courthouse green for that duration of period of time. And then just as another note, there will be the traditional Veterans Day program on the town common Saturday, November 11th from 11 to 12. All are welcome to join in that ceremony, and I will be speaking at that event in support of our veterans.
What was the time?
November 11th from 11 to 12. So I got the program, and it may be significant, and I'll learn why. I think it starts at 10:58, and it concludes at 12, is what my program says, at the town common. Next item I want to bring your attention to, this board has demonstrated its commitment towards public art in various ways over the last year. And so in an effort to continue to support the arts in the community, at the suggestion of Holly Garriott, who is our go-to with Emerge Gallery on the Pitt County Arts Council, as well as Commissioner Chris Nunnally, who brought this to my attention as well, I've spoken with local artist Jonathan Bowling. He's the artist here in Pitt County who creates those metal sculptures that you see around town. So at no cost to the county, and with a good agreement drafted by your county attorney, he has agreed to place 3 waterbird sculptures close to the pond at the North Campus Complex, where we just were today, as a display of public art in the community. Once the community centers are built, I'll probably continue the conversation with the Pitt County Arts Council to talk about rotating sculptures at each of those facilities, just as a no-cost way to beautify our community and support the arts. So those will be on display within the next few weeks, and wanted to let you know about that. Item F is a little bit longer, and you'll have a graphic on your screen. So Rivers East Workforce Development Board, this is in the interest of keeping the board informed. The chairwoman asked that I make a report to the full board about workforce development. And just sort of as background for some of our newer members, Pitt County is a member of the Mideast Commission, which is a council of government led by the executive director, Bryant Buck. And they assist with planning services, adult and aging services, and workforce development. All is well with planning and aging services, to the best of our knowledge. Workforce development is overseen by the Rivers East Workforce Development Board, and it's led by Jenny Bowen. Rivers East has been a wonderful partner this past week, especially during Manufacturing Week. And what's on your screen is a picture following the forklift rodeo that took place at Pitt Community College last week, and an unveiling of the Made in Pitt video series. It's a series of videos that you can watch at your leisure at that website, www.madeinpittcounty.com, that highlights a lot of the things that are made here in Pitt County and honors our manufacturers who are local to us. So Rivers East Workforce Development, this is an example. It was pretty exciting when Mayor P.J. Connolly and Chairwoman Mary Perkins Williams got up together and made joint remarks to address our manufacturing sector, and that the other picture is a ribbon cutting with many of our community partners on that pretty fun day. So that's some of the great things that Rivers East Workforce Development is assisting us with. But I also wanted to share some concerns about their workforce development efforts, particularly with regard to youth services. And this is an issue that the chairwoman brought to my attention several years ago, and I've continued to monitor. And this is in the spirit of keeping the board informed, and both Brian and Jenny know that I'm making this presentation to you all this evening. So Rivers East is not performing well in this area. And for several years now, their standards have fallen below acceptable benchmarks for service provision for youth workforce development. 2 years ago, there was some unspent money allocated to Pitt County that had to be diverted to another county in the state because we were unable to use it locally, despite having the local need for the funds. So at the chair's request, I have been monitoring the performance of those workforce development funds very, very closely over the last year. And both Jenny and Brian have been very transparent with me about our shared concerns. They are equally concerned about performance in this area as we are. So as a result of the concerns, Rivers East has done a few things, in particular with the youth workforce development. So effective July 1, they contracted with a local minority female-owned company for the youth services in the region. The CEO is from our region, she's familiar with the program, and she has many years of directly related experience and is based in Pitt County. They have also implemented monthly technical assistance meetings with the provider, which include requiring monthly outreach for each county, and they're providing quarterly staff training. The Workforce Development Board is receiving a newly reformatted monthly report, it used to be quarterly, outlining the progress of each of the established contract goals from the federal request for proposal that's required to be performed. Those are the same goals that have not been met consistently in the prior years. And this allows the board to track activity from month to month, including between meetings. The board has filled just this month a business service position to help with outreach to local businesses for paid work experience and on-the-job training opportunities. And they've also reached outside their regular fund sources to participate in the UNC School of Government's Carolina Across 100 initiative, which focuses on opportunity youth. And they've invested $20,000 to be able to use data and students from the University of North Carolina to implement new outreach methods that they have not been able to utilize with their traditional funds formula. So, wanted to make the board aware of those concerns. I am cautiously optimistic that the performance will improve. And the purpose of the report is to make you aware of those concerns, let you know that I'm continuing to monitor them closely, continuing to make the chairwoman aware of the monthly reports, and that if they do not improve within a short period of time, within the next quarter or two, I'll be back to this board with alternate recommendations about what might make sense to go forward, where we can have a deeper discussion with this board about what that looks like. But wanted to share that as a report, and answer any questions you might have at this point.
Any questions, member of the board? I'm proud that our manager is keeping an eye on it.
Okay. And then the last thing I have is a little different, and it's titled Legislative Advocacy on your report.
We do have a legislator in our audience tonight. North Carolina House of Representative Gloristine Brown. I think I recognized her, right? She's waving. So she is in.
Welcome. And so glad when we have representatives who are present, because I think that's also a reflection of the strong relationship that we have at the county level with our delegation in the General Assembly. And I think that relationship and my experience over this last year has led me to want to report to the board as the long session is winding down in the General Assembly. We're looking forward to the short session, which will begin next spring. And I would like the board to consider allowing me to do a temporary pilot change in the way we approach pursuing our legislative goals. So as we've done in the past, you know, the board gets together before the long session, we discuss goals, we adopt goals, and then in-house internally, we have conversations with our local delegation, and we keep our fingers crossed, and a lot of times we're successful, and sometimes we're not. And it goes without, so I guess my point today is that I believe that game has changed. The form of that game has changed. And doing the same thing that we've always done did not result in Pitt County receiving the level of funds that others did in this recently adopted budget. And it goes without say how grateful I am, and we are, I know, for the relationships that we have with our current delegation, Tim Reeder, Gloristine Brown, who's here with us, and Candy Smith. I also understand that in the upcoming short session, there's about $1 billion in funding to be allocated. There was more than that this last session, and we didn't get any. Pitt County directly did not receive any of those funds. And so I've been talking with those I respect in the community, including Dr. Lawrence Rouse at Pitt Community College, and he's in the same exact boat. He said, we've been playing this game the same way we've played it, and we're following all the rules, and we look at what other community colleges and what other counties have received throughout the state, and Pitt Community College also came up dry this year. And so Dr. Rouse and I would like to jointly enter into a contract sharing the cost equally with a state-level lobbyist to see if we would have better success in formulating our goals, communicating those goals, and receiving state funds to meet the needs in our community. And I went first to share it with this board. Dr. Rouse will share it with the Pitt Community College Board to gauge interest on that end, although his board is the one who really members of his board initiated this conversation with him. The value of the contract, or our half of the contract, would be within the contract authority that you've delegated to me as manager, meaning under $75,000 would be our part. But since this would be a significant change in practice, I didn't feel comfortable moving forward with that without coming to the board and talking about it. So I want to be sure that the board might be open to hiring a lobbyist who would, the expectations would be that they would meet with both boards, the Community College Board and our board, to help us formulate and develop our short list of goals. They would provide updates leading up to the short session and during the short session so that we're aware of what's going on. And if the relationship is successful, I think we will reap. Other counties and other jurisdictions got millions and millions of dollars. And if we invested $75,000 or less in a pilot program and received anything more than that, It's my opinion as manager that we're ahead of the game, and if we don't, if the relationship isn't successful, then we end it. And we go back to the way go back to the drawing board and come up with a different solution. So this is really my first sort of tiptoe into the concept of a lobbyist within our dollar threshold authority. And I wanted to see if the board had any questions, concerns.
Right here, I like to hear discussion from the board, and I'd like to start with Commissioner Copeland. Your feelings?
Are we doing this because other counties are doing the same thing?
I don't know that all other counties are doing the same thing. Some other counties are doing the same thing. The other counties that I have seen do this got a good bit of money. I
Can
can
you
tell.
name the county?
Yes, yes, so let me.
Well,
yeah.
that's all right. I thought it maybe popped in
Yes.
Mecklenburg or someplace like that.
No, I can tell you though, in looking at one particular contract, I mean, there is one lobbying firm that got like $645 million for its handful of clients, and one of those clients was a county. I'd love to be on that client list.
Commissioner?
That's how it functions up there. We need to be a part of that. Do you know what I mean? I mean, that's how it functions.
Okay.
And we backed off a little bit over the years, the last few years.
Commissioner Copeland, are you finished?
I am.
I didn't want to cut you off, but you know.
It'd be okay if he did.
Okay, all right. Commissioner Ward has spoken. I'm gonna zigzag this time.
Okay, that's fine.
That's okay with you?
Yes.
All right, Commissioner Huggins.
Do you have a lobbyist in mind?
So Dr. Rouse and I have considered various lobbyists, and we would look at ones who are, have experience with county work and community college work in those intersection, although our goals would be separate. I do have some lobbyists in mind, and
We're not gonna tell.
I'd like to explore those further before I make a recommendation or decision on that. But what I can tell you is that I would only want to go with a lobbyist who has a proven track record, who's within our budget, who is open to working with this board closely and on a regular basis, and who can get us results.
Well, I think it's a good idea.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Holloman.
I support.
Thank you, Commissioner White.
No comments.
No comment. Commissioner Nunley.
So, aside from having done it one way for a number of years, I think that the added benefit of the cost share provides us an opportunity to learn more about the current framework. So even if it's not something that is successful, I do think it provides another perspective for the board, and for the board and staff to grow into what it takes to advocate effectively at the legislature. So for that reason, I would be in favor of it, and hopeful that we get something. But even if we don't, I think that it would be a beneficial exercise.
Thank you. Commissioner McLaughlin.
I think I'm going to allude to something that Commissioner Nunley just advocated. In terms of the cost, Madam Manager, would that be between Pitt Community College and the county? How would that cost sharing be advocated?
Right, so I don't want to get ahead of Dr. Rouse, because I went first and he hasn't gone to his board yet. But when he and I spoke about it, we considered a 50-50 split.
Right. Well, certainly I think it's a very good idea in terms of bringing more revenue for the county. I didn't realize that it was that negative, that we haven't gotten anything. So I think it's good vision, good planning. I'm in favor to move on with it.
Commissioner Smith.
I'm supportive of it. That's kind of the way the game is played up there these days.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to say that we do have need. This building is one of those needs. And I like to keep the board reminded that we do have needs with this administrative building. So as we think about money and need for money, that's a good way of doing it. I think this hospital was built before some of us was even thought about. So I'm glad that the manager is talking and she's talking with someone who have that same issue. So, shall we continue? A little nod or do? And that's what I heard when I called on everyone. Thank you so much for your support. And Madam Manager, you.
That concludes
to
my report.
continue seeking. I need a motion for the items of consent.
I say move.
Motion by Commissioner Ward, second by,
Second.
who said that? Oh, Commissioner Huggins.
Madam Chair, may I just confirm that we do have, it is an amended consent agenda, or consent items on the
Yes,
agenda.
thank you, and I was going to say that as soon as the motion was made as well. In your items for consent, you have agreements that, for Habitat for Humanity Care and Community Crossroads. And those agreements did not have the exhibits attached in your packet. In front of you are those 3 agreements with those exhibits attached, and a very minor wording change in the one for Community Crossroads that confirms that those will be for capital needs and can't be used for anything other than capital. Thank you, and they are in front of you.
So we are voting for item of consent. Am I correct?
Correct.
Unanimous, Madam Clerk. Next item. Turn the page right here. Item for decision, item number 1, Lem K Park. One of our securities.
So, good evening,
Good evening.
Madam Chairwoman, Commissioners, and also
And I'd like to
County
say
Manager.
that I see that you are wearing a pink badge,
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
And I'm wearing a pink top. We are honoring Breast Cancer Month, if you are not aware of that. And I have pink shoes on. So I thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Vision
Yes, ma'am.
works.
Thank you. So, this evening, I'm here for an item of decision, and obviously, we've been a little bit delayed. This item for decision is the annual renewal for the inmates' health care service for the detention center with WellPath as our medical provider. And that timeline is July 1 of 2023 through June 30th of 2024. And forgive me with the intense negotiations that we've had to do over the recent months, but I'll just go ahead and get started. So the medical provider is eligible for a 5% increase according to the annual Consumer Price Index, CPI. WellPath has requested the increase of the 5% due to the inflationary needs, which is 6.5% inflation during that time period. And due to the nursing trends in the region, with the wage increase for nursing and the ability to retain or obtain and retain the quality nursing staff for the Pitt County Detention Center. The application for this increase would boost the annual amount of professional health service rendered at Pitt County Detention Center. This is for a period of that July time period, retro back to July 1, 2023, up to June 30th, 2024. In addition, 3 FTEs were removed to streamline the cost savings with no reduction in the services. And we put a lot of study in that to make sure that we wouldn't reduce any of those services. This will reduce the cost to the county, with WellPath adding in an additional cost for the medical assistant treatment positions not factored in the prior year contract. So just keeping that in mind, the total position hours annually for the mid-level provider for the MAT was 0.125. And that 125 represent 5 hours. We reduced that from 16 hours, which it was the year prior. And the reason why is because when you look at the number of patients that were being seen, that were being screened, there was a reduction in that process. So we wanted to look at some reduction if there was room to do some, renegotiation and reducing that cost factor associated with Pitt County. The LPN detox nurse, which is 1.4 FTE, which is 56 total hours. This is a sufficient increase to the overall medical budget avoided due to the FTE reduction. And so a lot of study went into assessing the number of FTEs that we actually have, full-time employees, and whether there was any waste within that or any need to make a reduction so that we could save Pitt County taxpayers money. That total cost and savings, if we just look at the FTEs alone, is $229,766. So I had to come up with a plan on how can I go before the board and actually not ask for a whole lot of money, but look to see where I'm a good steward of the money that I've been provided with, and look at how we streamline the staffing for the matrix for the medical program and still meet the needs of the detention center with our inmates. And let me just go on a little further. WellPath have done an extremely good job over the course of this yearly cycle, if you will. They have met the needs of our organization. They have provided for the inmates' care very adequately. They have met their meeting minutes to provide the statistical data to support a lot of the things that we have done in the agency that support the healthcare needs of our inmates. And nevertheless, even as we dropped those FTEs, we didn't reduce any chance of us obtaining the NCCHC standard accreditation that we're still working towards, and hopefully between now and maybe around February, we accomplish that ultimate goal. And like I said, very few facilities have that accreditation, but we are one of the facilities that are striving, and we're well on our way. We're probably a little bit beyond midway, and there's a year of documentation that had to be had on file in order to be able to apply for accreditation in general. Any questions?
Questions?
And if there are no questions, I would like to motion to allow the county manager to execute the new contract.
Well, now we'll do the motions, I think. I think we'll do the motion. So you want us to consider it?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely.
And approve it. So one of our safety featured persons would like for us to approve this agenda, and we do have a question. Commissioner Nunn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this is a question for the manager and our CFO. I see noted in the packet that this is budgeted for, and was this an expected, I guess from staff's point of view, an expected provision of an increase during the course of the contract?
Yes.
Okay.
So it actually could have increased to the amount of CPI in our
Yes.
budget negotiation, which was over 6%.
Sure.
In our budget meetings with the sheriff's office, they said they advised me and staff that they were negotiating the terms of the contract and believed they would be able to get that CPI at 5%. So we anticipated and budgeted for 5%. So all of this is covered within your existing approved contract. And then there took a longer period of time for them to iron out all the things that Chief Capehart just explained.
So we're on target. No curveballs here.
No curveballs from a dollar perspective, no. I wanted them to be present to provide you an update on the performance.
Yes.
Because from an outsider looking in, it looks like, hey, wait a minute, you reduced 3, but you're paying more. The
Yes.
money was anticipated, and I appreciate Chief Capehart's explanation of how and why they made those changes.
Okay.
Any more questions by the Board of Commissioners? So we the oversight part
Motion,
for the
motion.
county tax dollars, and Commissioner Nunn motioned it.
Second.
And it's been seconded by Commissioner Smith. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Let's vote. Unanimous. I hope you pleased.
Thank you, board.
Thank you, Chief.
Next item on the agenda is, that's our manager.
Yes. So this item was added to your agenda to discuss, and I'll really turn it over to the board for discussion. At the end of your last meeting where we talked about rescue plan funding and allocated the remainder of those funds, there was discussion and request by various board members to bring back those list of projects that you were aware of. Commissioner Colson asked that I attach a dollar amount to each of them. You received that in your weekly packet. And then the board may discuss these projects or other projects in turn to determine if there's any desire to take action at this time.
I'd like to make a motion that we provide CMSD with $2 million from the general fund for their project.
Second.
You've heard the motion. Let's vote. Let's see, MSD.
Content Metropolitan Sewer District. And you may, and I'll just leave it at that.
I need to know so that the public will know what it is. If I didn't, I have a lot of initials going around in my head, and CMSD is,
Contentia Metropolitan Sewer District. It has presented its needs to this board since Commissioner Smith has been on the board and prior. They have two major projects. One is a $12.5 million project, which was funded by the General Assembly, and we are so grateful for that. The other is a $28 million project, of which these funds would contribute toward that cost.
okay, so we're just tipping into something that's existing.
That would complete it, right, correct, the project as it stands now.
It's not going to complete it, no, but it will help that
Yeah,
project.
But I meant the project right
It's
now is
down
what
in
you
it.
want, right this
Yes,
minute.
correct.
What was that amount again?
$2 million from the general fund.
Two people haven't voted.
Madam Chair, the one thing I would like to ask is when we make a motion and it gets seconded, I believe that it's proper if you ask if there's any discussion rather than trying to ramrod it through. I agree with this, but if you would, I think there ought to be.
I will do that.
I think
I'll
there ought
make
to be
sure
at
this-
least the ask.
Yes. We're still in the process of voting, and everybody haven't voted yet, so I think, we can have a little discussion if we need to. I didn't see the vote.
It was unanimous, and I will.
It was unanimous.
It was unanimous.
Thank you.
And I will concur with Commissioner Colson. You should have discussion once you have the second.
Once we have a motion on the floor, then we will discuss it, Madam and Misters, Commissioners.
Since that
Thank you.
passed, is it okay if I bring up the next item?
Sure.
At this time, I would like to make a motion to give Pitt County Schools $1 million from our restricted sales tax fund that is set aside for education for their career and technical education department. Their CTE department could really use some updates and some improvements at all the different schools. It's a really great program to prepare kids, kind of get ready for them blue-collar jobs out there. It's really great workforce training, and I think that they could definitely use some improvements and updates.
Second.
Wait, that's not a motion, is it? Was
Yes,
that a motion?
I made a motion.
Okay, we got a motion on the floor now, discussion. What is this pertaining to all the schools in the county, not just one?
Yes, ma'am. It is for the Pitt County Schools CTE, Career Technical Education Department, and it will go towards improvements for all schools. There's not a particular school.
Okay.
And-
Commissioner Nunley?
Yes, and this would be coming from restricted educational funds, is that correct?
Correct. This
Yeah.
would not impact your
That's right.
fund balance
That's right.
percentage.
So, yeah.
Any more questions on this issue, item? Your vote for this item?
It would also not increase the base budget for Pitt County Schools.
Okay,
Madam Chair.
thank you.
Madam Chair, I have a motion.
Wait, I think I saw this one over here
Oh, okay.
first, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I saw the indication over this, was Commissioner McGlohan.
We're finished with
Okay.
that particular one.
So that motion passed unanimous, I do believe. Now we need a motion for the Bethel pit stop.
Ethel,
The pit stops for the county. I call it Bethel pit stop, because Bethel will get some help for health reasons. They have been trying to get some health function. This county has no public health services in the northern area, north of Pitt County. And they have been working on it, and I think the health director tried to do some voting for it. So we need to at least look at that end of the county as it relates to health care.
By way of background too, the board has heard about Bethel Pit Stop before. Mayor Wilson is present, and Angela Lamson and Wes Gray is still here as well. This is the initiative that the board first heard about from Dr. John Silvernail.
Yes.
Many months ago. The Bethel Police Station was identified and made available by the town of Bethel for use as a pit stop. Pit stop being a facility where multiple medical and other services could be housed under one roof for members in the community in a more remote area. Wes Gray, our new health director, has been advised of this concept and is still present. There were, the last time this was discussed, a good number of unanswered questions that the board was concerned about. Those questions really being, how will we pay for the coordinator, and how will we pay for some of those upfit costs? One positive note that was developed since Wes Gray has been on board is that he's identified some potential grant source opportunities that could fund that coordinator position and some of those ongoing expenses. So that if the town of Bethel were to, and you've got the mayor present, lease that property to the county would do the one-time upfit cost to make it the clinic. There's a grant that this board previously approved for equipment that would furnish it, and then there would be other grants to be applied for in order to cover the cost of the navigator to coordinate the services that are in there. This would be a model that would be replicated in other parts of the county where there may be transportation or other issues that prevent folks from getting into its urban center. I share that just so the board is a reminder of what we've previously discussed and the updated information on that should the board be inclined to allocate funds for that upfit.
Before Dr. Silvernell left, they were looking at Grifton since it's so far away and that sort of thing, but another person who was helped in interim applied for a grant and did not get it. So Commissioner Huggins, we're not having a discussion, I'm trying to get a motion.
So is this gonna run through the health department?
It would be general fund dollars. My expectation would be that it would be led through health department direction for its operation in seeking the grant and overseeing that operation. And Wes Gray can stand up if he says no, no, no. Is that right?
Yes.
Get a background of it. It sounds like a great opportunity, and the piece we were kind of looking for was that navigator type position that could be housed there and identified a really potential, good potential.
It will serve 3 townships, Bethel, Stokes, and Belvoir areas. Those are townships in the county that is distanced away from the current
And
services.
just to clarify, it is a one-time give of $300,000, and the grant money is going to cover the rest?
The operational costs, correct. So this would be for the upfit of that Bethel police station that, in full disclosure, the county doesn't own, but Bethel would be willing to give us control for the purposes of that upfit and for the use as a pit stop.
Okay, I did have a question.
Yeah?
Am I to understand, Madam Manager, that we still have some things that we have not worked out with this?
So there are, in terms of what hasn't been worked out, the grant has not yet been, so we have worked out what the questions are, what needs to be funded. What's not worked out is receipt of that application and receipt of the likely grant that would fund those opportunities. So, yes, it's not completely buttoned up, but it is as close to being buttoned up as it has ever been. And I think what's different now than probably the last time you looked at this is we have a health director with some experience in understanding grant sources that could cover those operations.
I think also.
What we're looking for is health opportunities.
Come to the podium, please. Thank you.
Yes, when we were talking about potential ways to find funding for that, the first thing I thought of was Health the Opportunities Pilot, which was North Carolina's the first in the nation to get a lot of federal money, about $650 million, to fund the non-medical drivers of health. You know, going out, looking at housing, looking at interpersonal violence, looking at transportation, food. And so Access East, we applied, I was on the committee about 6 years ago, and we applied for that grant, and Access East won it. And we got 3 pilots going on in North Carolina, and Greenville and Pitt County is part of our 9-county Northeastern pilot. And so Pitt County Health Department can apply as a health service organization and get funds. Albemarle Regional Health Services, the 8 County Health Department, they've applied. They've got funding for 5 positions just to cover Bertie, Chowan, and Hertford County. And so this is right up the alley of something like that we could apply for and house that person in there. And if that works, as this is that pilot in Bethel, and hopefully expand that to other parts of the county if it works there.
And the facility would be the first step, to have a place for this person to work from.
I make a motion that we fund the pit stop up there.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Second.
But he had his hands up. I've been trying to,
We got a second, but I'll have the discussion. I was just gonna put you on the spot.
we got a second?
I'm second.
Okay, we got a motion from Commissioner Colson, a second for Commissioner
And-
McLaughlin. Now we have a discussion from.
And as your first day on the job officially, I guess put you on the spot. Is this the type of project that you would like to have within the purview of your job?
Absolutely.
And work set?
Absolutely. It'd be great
Okay.
to have that health department presence there
Yeah.
along with other community partners that can use that facility to rotate in and out. It sounds like a great idea, and discussing that really, I think will help out the county a lot.
Well, our county does look like a ice cream cone in shape, and it's really capped off at the top of that. Any other suggestions over here? Any other discussion over here on the motion? On this end, any other discussion? So, let's vote. Are we ready to vote? I'm calling to see, then we vote. Thank you, I see you picking it up, so that's good for me. Oh, it was already there. Commissioner Ward, there we go. It's a unanimous pass. Thank you, Mr. Gray. Dr. Dre. I want to get your hand right. Commissioner McLaughlin.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you for recognizing me. Madam Manager, you may be familiar with, I know you're familiar with Dr. Gary Moore out of Bethel, the Bethel Youth Center. They're doing a very good job working with our youth in special projects and what have you. He had called me or wrote me and wanted to be considered for some funds, and he would document with this board. He did say for special projects. They're doing an excellent job with the children, the youth of that center. And I'm sure, Madam Manager, you're aware of some of the things that they have been doing. So the amount of money was not discussed because I think he's appreciative of whatever we can give him. So I'm recommending that the board at least do consider an amount that maybe could be feasibly worked out with you, him communicating with Dr. Moore in reference to this. But I think the need is there.
So I do know that in the past, is Kelly Andrews still present, through our economic development funds, we did provide $5,000 in support of the Dr. Gary Moore Summer Camp through economic development funds in the past, and I'd be certainly willing to talk with Dr. Moore, and Kelly and I can potentially meet with him and bring something back to the board. Is that?
And we just donated from the ABC board.
Did you just donate? How much from the ABC board?
I can't remember how much it was now.
Okay.
You can find out that.
I can find that out.
Thank you for sharing that information. Do you all know any other board that you've served on as a liaison that can help this cause? Commissioner Nunna, your hand been up, and I've been trying to get you in,
That's all
Commissioner
right, that's all
Nunna.
right. I'd like to make a motion that this is a project that's been going on for quite some time, at least discussions on it. We've had a lot of talk about parks. We were out at the groundbreaking for the North Recreation Center today with our board really pivoting towards the acquisition and development of green spaces and parkland for our citizens. I'd like to take a first step at accepting an owner transfer of Lake Linwood Park and designating it as a county park for the county, and setting aside out of fund balance $1 million for that project as
$1 million?
the cap. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I think the actual fund, if I'm not mistaken, was about 850,000, but the million is just to cover it. But I'll second that.
Is that a motion?
He did make a
Yes,
motion,
I
I second it.
Is that a second?
Yes.
I did second.
We have a discussion.
Yes, could we just get, James Rhodes and Tim Corley's, do y'all have any input on the county assuming responsibility of the dam? I know that's kind of in y'all's area of expertise. James with his 35 years of service.
Yeah, so that's kind of a loaded question. I mean, the county has certainly never owned a lake and a dam that I know of. So it'll be a learning experience for us in engineering as far as what's required. I do know we've reached out to Amy Black, who is with the consulting group that came initially and provided some input on, I think even provided some renderings of what could possibly go on that space. Right now, if the funds were approved, a majority of those funds would go toward the repair of the dam. We have not evaluated the lake itself, whether there would have to be any work done to the banks or anything like that, but the main source of those funds would be for the dam. And then the other funds within that $1 million would be for about 4 to 5 parking spaces, as well as a gazebo and a small fishing pier on the corner of the lake. So that's the plan if this were to be approved. As far as long-term maintenance, we did reach out to Amy and ask her what that could be. It's very hard to determine. Obviously, the initial cost would be put us out hopefully a long ways to having to do any other repairs to the dam. It is a natural thing, so there's drainage if a hurricane comes, or I guess I'll be the one responsible for going and lowering the lake level when a storm's coming. But I don't know. Our attorney could speak to what legal ramifications there are if anything were to happen. But as far as maintenance, it's really hard to determine. They'd be minimal probably for the first few years. No telling if I don't know what the condition of the lake is, whether it if it has a lot of sediment in it, if it ever have to be, you look at, anybody that knows the Brook Valley lake they have there is a big storm came and it's full of sediment, and they don't have the funds to excavate all that. It's very expensive to do. So something to think about, that there could be unexpected expenses. I don't know of anything right off the top, but there could be unexpected expenses.
I understand that the ARP monies are not supposed to be reoccurring. This has to be one-time expenditures is what we're talking about. Is that correct?
For general fund, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, this
Okay.
one-time expense would just be for the creation of the space, repair
But
of the
then there
dam,
was a
and
big
creation,
paper park.
and basically dedication of the land to the county, and then creation of that park facility.
And
And
that
then the
would be an
ongoing costs.
ongoing thing.
Yeah, the ongoing costs would have to be put in the budget, within either James's budget or a future recreation budget.
And just from the recreation standpoint, again, this would be something very new to us. I know other communities are involved with water features. There have to be a lot of discussion about what types of activities would be allowed, because this lake or pond is right in the backyard of several homes. And speaking of liability issues, if you have a water feature like that, there can be some liability that comes along with that. So that's just some of the things that we just noticed on the top of it, but there would be operational costs to go along with that if it is an active park.
Commissioner Nunley has been waiting patiently. Thank you so much for your patience.
So I think one of the interesting bits, and I think our manager Rhodes and manager Corley have described, this is a new thing for the county, and really where we're moving with parks is a new thing with the county. And I, for one, feel like that the word is out there with regards to economic development. When employers are looking at communities, what are we doing to put forth our best front porch to attract people? And I know, as someone that grew up and loves Pitt County, one of the things that that I find very attractive to Pitt County is that we have natural features, we have rivers, we have lakes that you can go to. Unfortunately, a lot of those lakes, fishing features are privately owned, and you cannot use them. I think anytime we get an opportunity to be able to bring in a significant feature that provides variety to access to recreation for our citizenry is a huge win. And I think I would hope that it's a start of looking at ways that we can bring in more acreage to our park systems that's passive, so that we get more and more usage, and we can sell that to employers when they're looking at locating it within our community. So for that reason, I think that this is a good first step at developing and diversifying our recreational opportunities, especially in that area of the county, which we don't really have in part.
We have a motion on the floor, and I think we've had ample time to discuss it.
Call for the question.
Thank you. We now have a call for question. Let's vote. It passed.
Okay.
63.
6-3.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
it's not pertaining to this.
Oh, well then, let's.
I want to go back to ask the Madam Manager to explain something, going back to our health director. You wanted to put a doctor in front of his name. It might be an opportunity for Madam Manager to explain the positions, the two positions that we have. I don't know that we as the county commissioners know, but the health board knows.
Sure. So traditionally in Pitt County's history, our health director has always been a physician. It made Pitt County very unique in the state. And under the guidance and wisdom of the Board of Health, for this recruitment round, the Board of Health advertised the position and decided that they wanted an administrator to be their health director and to contract with a physician who would provide the medical direction for the mid-level providers within the health department. That's the model that's very common throughout the state and very successful throughout the state. It also broadened our pool, so it was a much more competitive applicant search. So as a result of that, we have a non-physician health director in Wes Gray, and we contract with a physician who performs those functions that are necessary for a physician. And we're excited about this model and grateful to the Board of Health for having that vision. And Ann sits on that Board of Health.
I appreciate your bringing that attention to us as liaison for this board. Thank you so very much. And the manager seemed quite pleased. Whatever they're pleased with, their liaison and manager is good enough for me. Let's move on to the next item, you all. We're having a long meeting tonight.
Ma'am,
Yes, sir.
just for clarification, I'd like to make sure that the manager alluded to the fact that Bethel Youth Center has been, very, very good in terms of helping the youth in the community. So I'd like to make a motion that we provide $10,000 based upon how we've been working with that.
He made a motion that we provide $10,000 to the Bethel Youth Center. Anybody want to second that motion?
I'll second it.
Motion by Commissioner Huggins.
Can
We have discussion on the floor. The recognized parliamentarians said we discuss it after the motion is made. Commissioner Nunley, you are recognized.
So, first of all, say that certainly my speaking about this and maybe my potential opposition to it is not for opposition of those programs. It is a procedural opposition to consideration of nonprofit allocations out of the cycle and outside of a standard procedure that we have not been part to or privy to as a part of our agenda review. And that is just out of all due respect to anyone, right, on the board. So what I would prefer is that if there is a need, a demonstrable need for allocations, such as the one requested by Commissioner McLaughlin, that we consider a process for application, maybe set aside funds for that purpose, and then have staff receive applications, review, and make a recommendation to approve or disapprove as a one-time grant opportunity that we provide to nonprofits in the community. I just don't want to go down the road of me or Commissioner Colson or anyone, right, identifying someone that we've got funds here, and then let's do it without it being before us.
Well,
Because I, for one, would be in support of it if it came from me a little differently tonight. But in the context that it's arisen, I'm hesitant just because I fear the precedent that it sets. And I just wanted to express that. I'll do respect, right?
are we ready to vote?
You can
I'd like to
substitute
see,
I believe we're still in discussion.
huh?
We're still in discussion.
We're still in discussion. Commissioner Holloman?
I was asking if that was in the form of a substitute motion.
Oh, okay. Now,
Well,
personally, I don't want to see this board get into opening up a floodgate. I think you all have heard me say something like that before. So you vote your representation of how you feel about this motion.
well, would an appropriate substitute motion be?
Have it brought back before the board.
It is
Do
to,
a presentation.
is have a presentation and bring it brought back. And maybe maybe we want,
So
because
are
we've
you
got a fund
withdrawing
balance.
your motion?
I've not made a motion, Madam Chair.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm just discussing.
Okay.
But maybe set aside, so Commissioner McLaughlin requested $10,000. What if we, as a board, decided that that we do have additional funds this year? We want to have a one-time opportunity for like organizations to apply for and receive funding. And we consider that application along with others as a part of that process and set aside, say, $50,000 for that purpose.
Are you putting
How-
it in the form of
Manager.
a
I'll
motion?
make it as a substitute motion, but of course, I don't want to take away from Commissioner McLaughlin's movement. I want to find a way to support it, but where it sits right now, I just cannot support it.
Madam, I'd like to ask the manager, what would she think in terms of that? She's certainly familiar with the organization, and it's not like it's a Johnny-come-lately organization, so what are you feeling about that, manager?
I will obviously support the will of the board on this item. I don't have any objection to meeting with Dr. Gary Moore and bringing back a presentation that lays out how much he may need for his programs. I have not had a conversation with him. I have had conversations with the past. I'm very impressed with the work that he has done in that Bethel community. And I understand that he's expanding and would appreciate support from the county. I have not had an opportunity to get the details of that. And so your fund balance availability isn't going anywhere between now and next meeting. And so to the extent this board would like me to bring back that with a recommendation as to the number, I could certainly do that, hearing that there's support on this board for the expenditure, but not clear yet on the details or the amount.
I want to say something as chair, having gone through this ethics course. It makes me nervous. It makes me very nervous because it was a relationship kind of presentation in the motion. And having been in ethics, I will have to ask, I've asked our county attorney to be the ethics, I don't know that word for it, ethics commission.
The ethics ombudsman?
The ethics commission, yes. And at the way this was presented, you would need to make, I'd like to table this motion.
So there's a motion and
Because
there's a
there
motion
seems to
and a
be-
second on the floor.
There's a motion and second on the floor, and
and-
I want you to help me out with this.
So I don't believe that there's an ethical issue with the motion or the second, and that action is appropriate on the motion. We've had discussion, and so I think it's right for a vote.
Mayor, I'd like to say something.
Manager, I would like to withdraw that motion based upon what you said, and Commissioner Nunley mentioned that we can, we'll get with, you will get with Dr. Moore and work out a feasible amount and bring it back to the board, and then we can move forward.
Commissioner Colson, you had a,
I saw nothing wrong with what he said, but what I was hoping that we would be doing at this section of our meeting was discussing larger amounts of money for one-time purposes that had long-range effects on the county, where we might spend either ARPA money that might be left over and/or fund balance, where if you look at the numbers, there's $58 million there. There's about 1/3 of that easily that could be freed up, and we would be way, way ahead of our 18 million, or our 18% or 20% remaining, fund. Anyway, we've got $20 million that we can
that
spend.
motion has been lost for
What has been
withdrawal.
lost? But I'm still talking,
Oh, yeah.
Madam Chair. So what I'm saying is that there is an opportunity tonight to consider all of these, or some of these, or maybe others that commissioners might have that we haven't heard from yet. But I was hoping that that's what we would be concentrating on right now.
Yes, Commissioner Nunley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to maybe move to discussion on 2 county in-house items, and that's one involving broadband projects from the manager's comments regarding this agenda item, and consider, and maybe, Madam Manager, you could expand on what you would potentially like to see here with regards to broadband, and also on steps that we might take from these funds to move forward with looking at administrative building planning and development. Maybe if you could give us a little bit on both of those to see if these are 2 items that we could maybe address tonight.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Nunley. So, for inviting the conversation on that. In your list, I fully support this board continuing its discussion on a new county administration building. I believe that analysis and design would be in the $1 million range. My recommendation to you would not be to pull money for that mid-year out of your general fund or budget, but to continue that conversation and plan for it in your next fiscal year's budget. And so I think we keep that on the radar. This building is in fairly poor condition. If you step outside the main entrance and walk towards the DSS entrance and you look back at the building, you will see the brick facade sliding off of this building. This building has lived a good, full life, and we have always been hesitant to raise the issue of a new county administration building because there were so many unmet needs in the community. In particular, water north of the river and recreation and other things that were more pressing. I would say in the past 2 years, we have made a significant dent in addressing those issues, and that we have put off consideration of this long enough that I would be recommending in your next fiscal year's budget that you allocate funds for a new county administration building on county-owned land where there's already water and sewer, to avoid some of the significant costs that will be associated with maintaining this building. I am not recommending, although it's in your discussion list, that that be a mid-year allocation from your fund balance. I'd like to work that discussion into next year's budget. In the comments for this agenda item, I did include in there 2 things that the board may or may not wish to consider.
Because of the significant issues in this building, we budgeted for ongoing maintenance. But with the new Buildings and Grounds Director, and with the guidance of the county engineer, I am anticipating two fairly significant unexpected maintenance expenses that will exceed current budget, that I would have to come back to you in an emergent situation at that time. One has to do with this brick facade and the crack in the building that needs to be addressed. The other has to do with and Tim Corley may need to help me, a sewer line that exists under the old portion of the animal services shelter. There's no issue with the new section of the building, but in the old section, there's a old pipe under there that's connected to the sewer system, and it is in need of significant repair, potentially up to $50,000 to $100,000 worth of repair if that breaks unexpectedly. And so to the extent the board is allocating one-time money to address capital or longer-standing needs, or needs that have to be done on an emergent basis, you could consider those expenditures now, or I could bring them back to you when that emergency arises. But I've put in here to consider up to $300,000. I think $200,000 would get us through those two known emergencies if the board doesn't want to keep this sort of drip against the fund balance. So that's one thought. The other thought, and then I'll be happy to answer questions on both, is we are moving forward as quickly as molasses on our broadband installation. And that's just how the process works. Pitt County has been fortunate with broadband as our #1 priority to receive two great grants, one from Brightspeed and one from Charter. And Brightspeed is in design phase, and they will address a certain number of homes throughout Pitt County. And we're now proceeding, having just signed that second great grant agreement, we're proceeding with the CAB grant process, which will serve even more homes. And you've reserved rescue plan funds as a match for that CAB and other grants. All of that will take at least until the end of this rescue plan period to start to really see things in the ground. One of our potential partners, Cloudwise, who this board has heard from before, is installing fiber in the ground. And there are opportunities with Cloudwise or potentially other partners to use general fund dollars to get broadband fiber installed now. So it would be spending money now for more immediate work outside of the grant process. The board has the ability to enter into a public-private partnership for the purpose of accelerating the installation of broadband in unserved and underserved areas within the county now, or we can continue on the path we're on and follow the grant process, and by 2026, we'll start to see some progress because that's the deadline on when we need to see some things. So if this board has an appetite for entering into a public-private partnership with a fiber broadband provider outside of the state and federal grant process, you would need to allocate general fund dollars to do that. If you want to continue to move forward with the grant process and see where that leaves us, we can not take advantage of that opportunity at this time, the opportunity to enter into a public-private partnership, but we need to know that you're not going to see immediate action from those, especially in the northern part of the county, who will want to see broadband sooner. And Mike Taylor is present if I've said anything wrong or he has anything to add.
The fiber optics in Information Highway is a key piece of material that's needed. It's the best as far as communicating. And so there are a lot of people in the outer areas that do not have a strong signal for internet and broadband. So your consideration is honorable. But the board, Chris Nunley, please.
Madam Manager, does our entering into a public-private partnership to get fiber in the ground now and get those people connected now, terminate the big picture work that is going on right now to get everyone in the county served.
No, in fact, I think it will enhance it.
So it's just belt and suspenders and then another belt.
Yeah, and so really what it is we know the number of unserved and underserved homes. We
Right.
know if we maximize the CAB grant at the amount of money that you've set aside at a 35-35-30 partnership, we know that there will still be unserved homes above that, which would be more of a 50-50 split.
Right.
And so this wouldn't take away from those, it would be shifting the order.
Sure.
Because there is enough unmet need that would have to be done at a 50-50 match after the grants are exhausted to their maximum. And it may even have a partner be more aggressive in their response to our CAB RFP from the state because they already have an existing public-private partnership with the county. What I will say is that's something that the board can consider. I will say, as you consider your fund balance percentages, while there is a good amount of money to spend, with what you have spent, and I'm doing this really for the benefit of Sam too, with what you have done this evening, your fund balance is, if you spend all those funds that you've done this evening already, it brings your fund balance down to about 25.18% based on 2022 audited numbers. Right?
How'd you take 7% off that? I don't see that. There was $2 million. There was potentially $1 million Lake Glenwood, and then 300,000 Pitt stop. Where's the rest of the money?
So it's there. It's a calculation, and I can have Sam help me with this if you want to. You can spend, there is capacity to spend additional money, but what we've done is we've taken a 2022 audited number, and we've taken all of your fund balance expenditures, and remember, you budgeted fund balance this year as well when we balance the budget, and that's what you do every year. So we've taken all fund balance expenditures, and remember, we also made some fund balance expenditures earlier this year that will go against it, including the parking lot at Wintergreen Elementary School and the, there was a second one. Yes, the 700 megahertz radio system in order to get the $330,000 cost savings on the black box. If you take all of those expenditures and add them to this, now I'll say that number is on the low side because we know we're adding to fund balance. And we know that it's a 2022 audited number, and 2023 audited number will be ready in December. And we know, based on the numbers you heard in the monthly financial report, we continue to remain lopsided on revenues and expenditures, which means we'll likely add to fund balance going forward. So I would say you could absorb and remain healthy financially if you put $1 million towards a public-private partnership for broadband and $200,000 towards deferred maintenance. If you don't want to do that now, you don't have to. And you can stick with the $3.3 million that you've just allocated for this evening. 300 Pit Stop Upset, $1 million Lake Glenwood, $1 million CTE, $2 million CMSD. And stop there.
Does the board know about all of the problems that we had when that thing was falling down that day? And there are a lot of things that this building, you've been carrying for I call it emergency, because when the thing was falling at the front door there, they did do some maintenance for it to prevent the falling. There are some things happening about this building that we may not be fully aware of.
And if you want to stop now and have me bring those back at the time, that's what I would have to do anyway, right? So if Tim comes to me and says, I have an unbudgeted sewer pipe repair, we would first look to see if there were other funds available within budget, and if there wasn't, we would come back to this board and say, we have an urgent repair, and that's what fund balance is for. If you want to stop there, if that's the comfort level of the board, you can stop there. If you want to keep going, we can keep going.
I guess, and the thing that just gets me, right, there are kids still in rural areas of our county that don't have access to internet, and that they're getting schoolwork that they can't do. And Commissioner White's brought it up before, and we've all, especially those of us that serve districts that have rural areas, you know, this broadband piece is huge. And I guess when you say immediate, does that public-private partnership get it done this school year? Because that kind of weighs in my balance that this is something we can stop and discuss later, or if this is something that, hey, we get it in the ground, it goes, and then we're up and ready to run.
It would impact the Bethel area, right? Because we're looking at the maps very carefully to see who's already served, where there are opportunities for cab. There is a small area in Bethel that would serve, tell me how many homes, Mike? Just under 1,000 homes, that with about a $980,000 partnership could have fiber in the ground in less than 12 months. In less than 12 months, as opposed to 2026.
I mean, so.
That's a lot of
I have to
homes.
say, that's a lot of homes.
And we can do that, and there are partners willing to do that, and we could do that now, or we could do that at the end of all the other funds being expended.
I think it's a no-brainer you do it now.
Then let's do it.
You want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we.
I'll second.
It was motioned by Commissioner Coulson that we approach the broadband issue, and it was seconded by Commissioner Nunley.
Madam Chair.
Now we can discuss.
Point of order. I would like to refer to the county attorney on this one. There was a motion and a second about the Bethel Youth Center. I withdrew that, and we didn't act upon that. Am I right?
There was no action because the motion was.
I'm sorry?
There was no action because the motion was withdrawn.
Right, so once I withdrew it,
That was it.
That was it?
Yes.
Okay,
Well-
but we're gonna refer back to the manager as a clarification, and so she's gonna do the studies to bring back to this board a recommendation. Am I correct?
That's correct.
All right, I'm good.
That's what I've been holding up my finger for, because I want to go back to that, because I wanted clarification and parliamentary procedures also, that he withdrew his motion. I did not have an opportunity to withdraw my second.
Right.
So I want to ensure that we are going to get some information from Madam Manager about it.
At your next meeting, yes.
Yes.
And I don't need a
Does that
motion to
mean
bring
that
that
she
back.
had to withdraw her second?
She did not have to withdraw her
Yeah,
second.
but I just
Once the
want-
original motion is withdrawn,
Once
then
the
it's
original
withdrawn.
motion is withdrawn, you do not have to withdraw your second.
Well, I
That's
just
why I
wanted
did
the
not
minutes
put
to-
any action on it.
Yeah,
Because
I wanted the minutes to reflect what went on.
Madam Clerk, did you catch all that? It's recorded, correct? Thank you, we will expect to see it. See, I know that all our yak comes out on the recording, and she can pick it up. So look for it in the minutes. If it's not there, we can correct it. Is that all right?
Madam Chair, I'd like to ask the county manager something. For these other items that are on the list, Simpson Fire Department, Fountain Fire Department, can we have a little bit more of information as to what those funds are being requested for? I mean, you don't have to do it now. I mean, and I'd like to see it in writing, and then that way we can bring these things back next meeting, next month, whenever. We got plenty of time.
I have written correspondence from each of them that I can, that I think have been provided to the board in pieces along the way. I can put a package together in your next weekly information package that has all of the information that I have about each of those projects.
All right,
Sure
thank
can.
you.
All right. What's the pleasure of this board as to what we're going to do next? Yes, sir, Mr. Commissioner
All right,
Howell.
there's a motion, there's a motion and
There's a
a
motion
second
on the floor. Thank you, because I have forgotten it. What was that motion?
It was
Broadband.
Broadband.
Up to $1 million
And it was
toward a
from
public-private
Nunnally
partnership.
and Coulson. All right, we're ready to vote. Thank you, Madam Attorney.
Mr. Attorney.
Mr. Attorney, I'm so sorry. You see what happened when we go past 8 and 9 o'clock?
Understood.
Motion passed. What is to come before this board now, Madam Manager?
Spending a lot of money. If the board doesn't have any other discussion, you can move on to your next topic.
All right, thank
Unless
you.
you wanted to address the maintenance, but I'll come back to you on that if I need to.
I'd like to see you come back, bring back that maintenance issue about this building, because when a porch is falling, and it makes you nervous to walk on that something need to be done, and we don't need for the employees in this building to suffer any undue.
If it's that bad, then it needs to be torn down and/or corrected.
Yeah, but
Now.
we got to keep it right now and use the best we can.
Not if
But
it's
she
gonna
did
fall
it,
in your head,
they
no.
did take care of it. Okay.
I'm allergic to that.
Can we come up with the next item on the agenda?
The Medicaid expansion plan, Sharon Rochelle.
Thank you. And I thank you for your patience while we squabble through the agenda. I appreciate you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to come and talk about Medicaid expansion. It's been a while coming, but starting December 1st, it'll be here in North Carolina.
Yes.
I've had the opportunity, this is my third Medicaid expansion in a third state, so it's interesting to see how this is developed. But, you know, thank you, Madam Chairwoman, for allowing us to do this, County Manager, and our Board of
Members the
Commissioners.
board.
I have Brian Everett behind me. Brian is the program administrator for the income maintenance portion of the Department of Social Services. We have a short presentation tonight, and we'll go through it, but feel free to ask questions. I think North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services has put us in a pretty good financial situation to make this happen, as well as with other counties. But I just want you to think about the number of individuals that we will now be able to serve who have gone without any health care coverage. And I know that I've had discussions with ECU hospital and medical staff and how much they're looking forward to the Medicaid expansion to occur. So I'm going to turn it over to Brian, but I'll be right here for any questions you have. Brian?
Good evening, Madam Chair, Commissioners, Madam Manager.
Good evening.
Medicaid expansion has been approved by the North Carolina General Assembly, and the implementation date is December 1st, 2023. Medicaid expansion is going to provide access for almost 13,000 additional individuals in Pitt County. That's the projected number over the first 2 years of implementation. What is changing about Medicaid is the disability requirement is being eliminated. So up until now, individuals between the age of 19 and 64 who did not have a minor child receiving Medicaid were not eligible to participate in the Medicaid program unless they could meet the disability requirement. And we know there are a lot of individuals who are dealing with chronic health issues who would not be considered disabled and are working but are not able to access health care because they could not meet the disability requirement. And the chart here just shows the income level for a household size of 1 or household size of 2, because many of the individuals would be in a household size of 1 or 2 in that age group. The income limits are at 133% of poverty after a 5% income disregard. So you'll see some charts that are out in the media now that indicate 138% of poverty. The Medicaid policy says 133%. So when you give the 5% income disregard, that's where they get the 138%, if you see that in any information that's being provided also in the media about the Medicaid expansion. During the first year of implementation, these are Pitt County projections, 10,025 additional Medicaid beneficiaries. During the second year, approximately 2,841 additional Medicaid beneficiaries. Approximately one-half of the Medicaid beneficiaries in year one would convert to full Medicaid electronically. So these are individuals who are receiving lesser Medicaid benefit programs, but will be able to receive full Medicaid once the state does the electronic transfer. So that group that, the 50% or so that's projected will not have to make an initial Medicaid application. The other 50% would have to actually make a Medicaid application, and on average now, Pitt County is receiving monthly about 457 applications per month for Medicaid. With the projected number, if you project it over a 12-month period, we would be looking at 875 applications per month. So we're almost looking at doubling the number of applications that would be received by the DSS staff. This is a projection of staffing needs as the program becomes implemented. In the area of intake, we project we would need 10 additional income maintenance caseworker 2s and 2 income maintenance supervisor 2s. We would want to add an income maintenance caseworker 3. The caseworker 3s do our quality control and check the work that's being done to ensure that it's being done accurately so we can prevent any county paybacks when we have audits. And there's always an audit or a monitoring of some type going on with the Medicaid program. Redetermination workers for the future, we would be looking at about 20 additional income maintenance caseworkers in redetermination, and that's where the additional almost 13,000 individuals or cases would come. Those cases are going to have to be reviewed. So if somebody applies in December of 2023, the case is going to have to be reviewed in November of 2024. So that's coming further down the road, the actual review of those that will be joining the Medicaid program. We also have included 5 floater positions, caseworker 2s, to assist with when there are long-term vacancies due to employees being on medical leave, or if a vacancy occurs, we are still expected to meet the processing standards that the state requires so that the benefits are received by the Medicaid beneficiaries. Our current staffing request for right now is for the intake area, to begin with the intake area, the staff we're going to need for that area. That's 10 income maintenance caseworker 2s, the income maintenance caseworker 3 to do the second party review of cases, and 2 supervisor positions so that we may begin the onboarding process and training that will be necessary to accommodate the applications that we know we will be receiving. The good news is that the state has advanced, this is federal funding the state has received, they've advanced to Pitt County $643,215.77. These funds will have to be used by the end of June 2024. Otherwise, anything that's left over at the end of the fiscal year will be reclaimed from the county. These funds represent what a local and federal share would be for the Medicaid expansion activities. The figure you see below is the projected monthly Medicaid expansion funding figure beginning with December. $31,839. That's a projection based on the size of our Medicaid caseload and the expected cases or applications and then ongoing cases we would receive. That amount of money, that figure represents what would be the county share. So the federal share would be either 50 or 75% based on what program or what the function. So this is just sort of an overview. We are asking approval to have the 13 requested positions added to the head count, and also to be able to go ahead and move on filling the positions. And I'm happy to answer any questions for you.
Any questions of the board? Let's start on this end. We're quiet over here. And the questions, all right on this end.
Motion to approve,
Commissioner
Madam
White.
Chair.
Oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry, motion got to be first. Commissioner Melvin McLaughlin made a motion that we approve. Was that correct?
Yes.
Commissioner? And is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Holland. Now we're ready for discussion.
Who?
Oh, Commissioner White, I'm sorry.
That
Commissioner.
31,000 at the bottom, it said monthly. That's not gonna be a monthly cost for the county, is it?
No,
Okay.
no,
It's a
that,
monthly revenue for the county.
right. And that's an approximation the way that works, when it actually starts in December, we'll have should have a more finite figure, but that's an approximation. And those funds are drawn down on a monthly basis as the business officer submits a form that shows the activity for Medicaid expansion, and that's drawn down on a monthly basis. So that money is not advanced, it's drawn down as it is utilized.
Thank you.
You're
Any more
welcome.
questions?
And Commissioner Wright, I just want to, so that amount is actually the local share, and we're being reimbursed every month, so there is no local county share. And the rest of that money would be federal and state share that we receive, so there's really no cost to the county.
Okay, that's fine. I might
Yeah.
have zoned out for a second.
No,
Thank
that's
you.
okay.
I don't have a question, but I'm glad to. My question was going to be, but you answered it at the very beginning, how many uninsured residents we have who would be eligible for Medicaid. So you answered it with 12,866.
That's the projection, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
That's quite a number. Any other comments or question? Then, if not, then I call for question, vote.
Madam Chairwoman, if I could just add that I'm so pleased that this is not in any shape an unfunded mandate for this program. The state has been very generous in advising us how much they're spending. They've sent it in advance, and they're continuing to send it monthly, and the goal is that there be no out-of-pocket cost for the county. And so all of what's being requested today is completely covered by outside funds coming in, and it will have it'll be a net impact on your budget. If this doesn't pass, we'd be unable to do our job, and you'd have to send the money back.
So, any misunderstanding? We're ready to vote. Then nobody, you didn't call for question, but yeah, I'm working it. Pass unanimous, Madam Clerk.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience. Been a long evening. Next item is appointments.
You have 3 reappointments. The first one is to the Shepherd Memorial Library Board of Trustees. It's recommended that you reappoint Ms. Terry Atkinson to the Shepherd Library Board with a term expiring October 31st, 2026.
I'd like to move for her reappointment.
Motion by Commissioner Ward, second by Commissioner Kosa. Let's vote, please. Next, Madam Manager.
It's recommended that you appoint Ms. Heather Cook to the Pitt County Nursing Home Adult Advisory Care Community Advisory Board with a term expiring October 16th, 2024.
Motion
Hit us again.
by
So
Commissioner Kosa,
So move.
Second.
second by Commissioner White. Let's vote, please. This is where I like to see it roll. Manager Gallagher.
It's recommended that you reappoint Dr. Herb Garrison to the Board of Health as the physician representative with the term expiring September 14th, 2026.
Move to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Huggins, second by Commissioner McLaughlin. Let's vote, please. Now, we have House of Representative Glerstein Brown in the area. We're down to comments. Say hello.
everybody today, so I don't want to get pushed. I'd like to say, good evening to everyone. I have listened attentively to everybody, and first thing I want to say is congratulations again to Janet, to the manager, to the Board of Commissioners, to the Pitt County staff, to everybody for what has taken place today north of the river with that groundbreaking. That is outstanding. I mean, thank you so much, and I know everybody that played a part in that, thank you, because it looks good. When, you know, we felt like we were long-lost children for a while. And also thank you for what's happening for the mayor on his watch, and for Ms. Lamb, you know who I'm talking about. Real quick, to say what's happening for Bethel, thank you for that pit stop. It's needed in that area. We were hurt when we lost our clinic, but thank you for making things happen again. And also, I would love to say this real quick. You all know that I am a freshman up in the legislation. And I will say, me observing, to say that yes, a lot of the dollars that I have seen funneled so far has come through lobbyists. And I'm not offended to say that, you know, I am working the best I can, but when you're fresh up there and when you're new, you know, I will speak up for my district, I will speak up for my community, I will speak up for my county. But having those lobbyists, and they are there, some are there every day, and they are walking the halls, and they are reaching people, and they are talking constantly. So I think that was the best move that you made to partner with Pitt Community College. And whatever, still, I'm going to work hard, and I'm going to keep working. I can, you know, do what I can do, but being there and new and trying to learn the ropes, I've seen a lot, learned a lot. But I just want to thank all of you again for what you're doing for Pitt County, and Pitt County is on the rise. Thank you.
Thank you. We have the mayor of Bethel here. You want to stand up and say thank you and sit down?
Thank you. But I would like to say this here. I agree with MC House Brown. I've listened attentively to what the board has discussed on tonight. And I think, and I know for a fact, you guys and ladies and gentlemen are doing a great job, not only just for Bethel, but for Pitt County as a whole. And I've heard that when you go places, we don't want people just to know where Greenville is. We don't want them just to know about Bethel, but we want to let them know about Pitt County. That Pitt County is really on the move, it's on the rise, and it's having an effect on all the county, all the towns in the municipal area and stuff. And I just want to thank you for all that you're doing for Bethel, and not only just for Bethel, but for all the other cities in the Pitt County area that need help and stuff. And we understand it's one day at a time, one step at a time, so long as we keep going forward. And every now and then, it doesn't hurt to look back just to see how far we've come, because we have come a long way. I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. All right. We have our guests. We yield to our guests. We'll start over there with Commissioner Coastal.
No comments.
Commissioner Huggins.
I'm just going to say our mission is to be leader in the state, best in the East.
Yes. Correct. Commissioner White.
I actually do have a comment tonight. I'll make it very quick. My boys and I rescued 5 abandoned kittens a little while ago, and we bottle fed them for a while, and then we turned them over to the wonderful people at the Pitt County Animal Shelter, and they found foster homes for them, and they will be ready for adoption in the next week or 2. If anybody wants a kitten.
We got a parent up here nursing kittens. Know that you can get them from the animal shelter.
Yes.
Commissioner
There's
McLaughlin.
No comment.
Commissioner Smith.
I'd just like to thank the board for the support with the funding for CMSD. That is a vital project for the growth of Southern Pitt County.
Yes, it is.
Thank you so much.
Commissioner White. Ward.
No comment.
Commissioner Holloman. Commissioner Nunley.
No comment.
Can't believe it. Thank you all for coming. I need that motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Commissioner White, second by Commissioner McLaughlin, and my clicker is already on the button.
Go ahead, I know you want to hit it too. I knew that. I started to do it myself.